Alright, the Cleveland Browns made a notable move in the NFL draft, selecting quarterback Shedeur Sanders, a decision that capped off one of the more surprising draft slides in recent memory. Sanders was ultimately drafted with the 144th overall pick in the 5th round on Saturday in Green Bay. Notably, the Browns traded up to get him, sending 2 later picks to the Seattle Seahawks. His draft experience saw him go from attending Thursday night's opener in Green Bay in flashy attire, clearly expecting to be an early selection, to waiting until Saturday's later rounds, where he was seen in much more casual wear answering the draft call from the Browns' dimly lit draft room. Details of that draft call show GM Andrew Berry and coach Kevin Stefanski welcoming him to Cleveland. Berry told Sanders they would take him, quote, off the board here, and then famously encouraged him to, quote, get ready to go to work and prove all the people who passed on you wrong. Sanders' fall from being projected as a possible top pick, potentially even in the 1st round, all the way to the 6th quarterback taken in the 5th round, has been widely discussed. The article delves into the reported reasons for this slide, as covered by various sources, about how he handled the pre-draft process. This includes reported struggles in interviews with some teams, such as the New York Giants, and a perceived entitled attitude, along with an average pro day performance. Sanders himself has since acknowledged in a conference call with Cleveland reporters that he could have done some things differently in the pre-draft process. However, the article provides significant insight into the Browns' evaluation of Sanders at his draft slot. They spent extensive time with him throughout the process, meeting at the Shrine Bowl and Combine, hosting a Top 30 visit, and dining with him before his pro day. Their evaluation didn't lead them to view him as an elite prospect, or worth the initial number 2 overall pick they held, which they later traded down from. But as he continued to fall into day 3, they saw value. GM Andrew Berry stated they felt he was, quote, mispriced relative to the draft, in the 5th round, and the acquisition cost was, quote, pretty light, believing he's a, quote, guy that we think can outproduce his draft slot. The article includes positive evaluations of Sanders as a person from Berry and team sources, describing him as a, quote, really good kid, with, quote, resolve, who, quote, works hard, and whose teammates loved him in Colorado. The article also provides context on the Browns drafting 2 QBs. They had already selected Dillon Gabriel earlier in the 3rd round with the 94th pick. Picking Gabriel over Sanders in the 3rd was noted as a, quote, real shock for draft watchers. But Berry and Stefanski reportedly felt strongly about Gabriel after extensive interactions with him. The Browns' rationale for drafting 2 QBs wasn't necessarily the plan but aligned with their philosophy of best player available and positional value, especially when Sanders fell unexpectedly, aiming to add competition to the quarterback room. Despite being a 5th-round pick, Coach Stefanski says Sanders will get a chance to compete for the starting quarterback job in a remodeled room that includes veterans Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel, and 2024 starter Deshaun Watson, who is expected to be sidelined for a significant portion of the 2025 season. Berry also shut down any notion of ownership forcing the Sanders pick, stating team owner Jimmy Haslam lets them do their jobs. In summary, the Cleveland Browns' decision to draft Shedeur Sanders was a calculated move in the 5th round. They viewed him as a high-value pick at that point despite his significant slide from earlier projections, based on their positive evaluation of his potential and character during their interactions, setting up a potentially competitive quarterback room in Cleveland for the upcoming season.